Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers. Tiki here,
And BlueDragonFive.
and welcome to the Kickback Cafe, the show where we kick back, relax, and discuss anything but Disney. And you know what other show, to my knowledge, has not done a Disney podcast so far, Blue Dragon 5?
Which one?
The Movie Machine. Can you take it away? Can you do a quick plug?
So, folks, if you haven't heard us mention on almost every podcast ever since we first brought it up, the Movie Machine podcast is this really excellent exploration and creativity. We get four people in a room, usually four people in a room, stemming from our pals at Super Academy, Jacob Gulliver, Ben Lifson. Now, the roster changes. Basically, a lot of our creative guys have worked on that show. Basically, it's a kind of an improv-based series where they four guys sit down, kind of taking on the roles of director, producer, writer, et cetera, all the little positions to make a movie. And they kind of debate making a fictional film, and they kind of pitch it to each other and kind of riff on it. And it's a lot of fun, a lot of possibilities. Some of those insane stuff you'd never think would be a movie, but the way they do it, folks, it's entertaining. It's played straight, and it's hilarious. So again, that's Movie Machine podcast. Check out. They always have an interesting kind of really kind of episodes really distinct from the other one. It's a lot of fun. It's on Hot Chocolate Media.
Last week was Despicable Me 3. This week is buddy cop comedy with a Finding Nemo reunion of Brad Garrett and William Dafoe. Lots of good stuff.
It's a Movie Machine podcast on hotchocolatemedia.net, not .com, because .com will betray you. .net, gotcha.
All right, and speaking of nets, and yeah, Dragon, what have I gotten myself into with this? This is going to be a fun discussion. So we're talking about Blackfish. This film came out in 2014, I want to say. 13, okay. I believe Adventure Blue Dude and I did a podcast about it 2014, I believe. And we talked about the actual movie for like 20 minutes and then just kind of went on an off-topic pod tangent. It was not a good podcast. So kind of righting the wrong of this, I kind of want to make this a little bit more of an official podcast. We kind of, on that one, we kind of talked about the controversy. This one, we're going to talk less about the controversy and more about how I still don't think this is a good movie. I really don't. I think there's a lot of stuff that just makes me uncomfortable. I don't think it's pleasant to watch. Dragon, you have a different opinion.
Yes, very different.
So that's kind of going to be the framework of the conversation, just kind of debating the warrants of this movie. But Dragon, before we begin, let's kind of get into how we found this movie and kind of really briefly our connection to SeaWorld in general, because I feel that's definitely something that this film hits on.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Okay, so here's how I found this movie. It's real simple. I basically, when I first got Netflix, I was basically biding my time until Daredevil found its way to Netflix and changed the face of Marvel from that day forward. But I was, it's the main reason I got Netflix was to see the Marvel shows that were coming out. In the meantime, I was taking advantage. I just kind of was looking around, again, biding my time until Daredevil eventually found its way to us. And I saw Blackfish, and this stuck out to me because I knew, again, all the fun, given it's already come out recently, how appropriate it is.
That's actually probably one of the reasons why we're doing this podcast right now, is Finding Dory did just break the record for highest opening weekend box office gross for an animated film, so congrats to that.
No, very nice. Anyway, so oddly enough, just how it turned out here is that I was waiting for Daredevil. I saw Blackfish, and I remembered when I was reading about the making of Finding Dory, because I was following that production closely, because it was a big deal for Pixar, and I noticed they mentioned it kind of similar to the third act of the original Nemo, where they Andrew Stan was reading a magazine article, and there was a real life thing where codfish tipped over the boat. Which made its way into the movie, and I heard that for Finding Dory, I won't give away any specifics, but this is what was verbatim said in the Wikipedia article when I looked at it, is that, after seeing Blackfish, which I had no idea what it was about when it was just, this is Blackfish, I clicked on it and said, okay, it's a documentary, that's all I knew about. After viewing Blackfish, they kind of made sure it was kind of an open-ended thing where it's a little bit of a happier ending for the third act. And that just kind of, it was piqued my interest. I had time to kill before Daredevil. It wasn't like it was on the same day or anything. We're saying, well, again, I'll take advantage of Netflix in the meantime before the real thing I'm eager for comes in. Netflix is awesome, by the way. Don't get me wrong. Netflix has tons of really good things on there, really good exclusive stuff. Also, a lot of movies at your disposal, really awesome. And I watched Blackfish, and we'll get into how I thought about it after Tiki explains how he found this movie.
Okay, so I found this movie because Adventure Blue Dude was joking about how it essentially turned a killer whale into a slasher film. And that was kind of like the running joke of Adventure Blue Dude and is that I feel like this movie is just so manipulative on so many levels with that kind of stuff. But I mean, obviously I had heard of this. I kind of feel like I had heard the word Blackfish thrown around. I knew it was some sort of anti-SeaWorld thing. I didn't exactly know what it was, but I did rent it one night with me and my dad, and we watched it, and the whole thing just made me feel very uncomfortable. And we'll get into the overall debates about, like, I know to a certain extent the film is designed to make you feel uncomfortable, but you want to talk quickly about our memories with SeaWorld?
Yeah, so you know what? I really think I'm the target audience for this movie, T. I think that might be a big reason why I have fonder thoughts of it than you. Is that I've only been to SeaWorld once in my life, and don't get me wrong, it was an okay experience. I mean, I wasn't in love with the place, and I just I saw SeaWorld once. I mean, the idea of SeaWorld's it's cool, but honestly, I mean, when you're in the same, I went to Florida, SeaWorld in Florida, and when I was there, it was just as a kid, when you're in the same place, and Disney and Universal and Islands of Adventure are like in the same, are you in the same state? I mean, you kind of don't get wrong. You see the shows, okay, the whales do a trick, splash, splash. Maybe you buy a cuddly whale toy. I don't know. I didn't, but I'm just saying, you see kids all going around. Right? We even see it in Find Door, which is awesome. But you kind of lose interest fast as a kid when okay, Buzz Lightyear's around the corner and like a park miles and miles away.
Dragon, it's funny you mentioned that, because that exact reason is the reason I've never been to Knott's Berry Farm, because Knott's Berry Farm is like literally like 5 miles away from Disneyland. But I can't bring myself, anytime I'm in Southern California, I can't bring myself to spend a day away from Disneyland. I just can't do it.
But my main point, before you get into your experience of here, is that with SeaWorld, again, it's just I was really kind of I was on the line there. It was it's okay. I didn't really have any big attachments to it. I mean, my parents really are the ones that said, let's go to SeaWorld. Again, I was thinking, okay, undersea life, that's cool. And again, just you lose interest fast, and it's because of that I hadn't felt one way or the other about it, which I think is for this film is why I really don't have a strong attachment to SeaWorld or the idea of SeaWorld, and why I may be receptive to what the movie was spouting, perhaps.
Okay, this is interesting. I'm glad we kind of went over our history with this kind of stuff, because I have never been to an actual SeaWorld park. But what I have been to, what was a big fixture of my childhood, was obviously now I have Six Flags Discovery Kingdom. They just opened the Joker coaster, which I was talking your ear off about. It's amazing. Oh, yeah. But before that was a theme park, and it got bought out by Six Flags, and they added a bunch of coasters and everything. Before any of that happened, it was a wildlife park / marine conservation park. So basically one half of it was devoted to you had... And a lot of this stuff is still there, by the way. Like, you have, they have a shark exhibit that's still there. They have a walrus exhibit that's still there. That was there back in the day. Most of their land stuff is actually still there. Like, they have elephants, just kind of like a general zoo type area in the back. Kind of, it's separated and isolated from the coasters and everything, which is nice. But because it's kind of like this out of the way area. It's nice because mostly Six Flags parks are just slabs of concrete and coasters. But I digress. So Marine World, it was Discovery Kingdom. They changed the name to Discovery Kingdom around 2008. But it used to be called Marine World Africa USA. And and they did have a killer whale show when I was a kid. And I do very, very, very vividly remember I would sit up in like the nosebleed seats of the stadium and watch the killer whale show. I never would want to get close as a little kid, just because I would be like, Well, they're called killer whales. Why would I want to watch them? Because they kill people, which is ironic given the subject matter of this documentary.
Oh yeah.
But and I just remember my grandparents are just like, oh no, that would never happen. They just call them. And it's like, no, it's actually as a child, I actually had quite a good reason to be afraid of them, I guess. But no, but really, I've had this whole, like, I've never been to a SeaWorld, but Marine World was my SeaWorld, so I've had the experience, you know. I've had the dolphin shows. They still do dolphin shows there. I've had the killer whale shows. The killer whale show, they got rid of it in the 90s. They brought another one in the 2000s. That didn't last very long. So they haven't had a killer whale in over a decade, but it was just a huge fixture of my childhood. So I guess in that respect, Dragon, I have a lot of attachment to it. I have a lot of nostalgia, and it's kind of funny. My favorite part of Blackfish is actually sort of the cheesy 80s commercials for SeaWorld that just hype it up to be the most goddamn awesome place in the world when clearly it's not as great as something like Disney. But but anyways, let's get into it.
So I guess we should kind of make kind of our general kind of our thesis statements on kind of where we come down on this film here. So for me, I thought when I saw this film, I was really kind of, I really didn't know what I was expecting going into, because I thought, okay, well, it's going to be a whale thing. Maybe I'll get some kind of cool Easter eggs of like, okay, we might see this in Finding Dory. That was my anticipation going into it. Oh, maybe I can sniff out what they're going to use from this in Finding Dory. That was my big hope. I mean,
right.
Looking at this thing, it must be good, which in the past has been true with their documentaries they have looked at. Like, okay, this actually has a really good impact in that sort of thing. And
it's kind of funny because making a murderer I don't like for a similar reason to this. I just find it a thoroughly unpleasant experice. But anyways,
I think that's really dumb.
Exactly. And I just think it's just depressing, and I don't want to watch it. But
okay, anyway, so yeah, my kind of my way I came down was after I saw the movie, I was really blown away by how I thought compelling it was. I was like, oh my god, this is so well made. I mean, this is a much better doc. I thought it was gonna be like kind of your regular kind of average nature documentary, like, oh, but then again, the Pixar things, the main that was stringing my interest along. But then I was just so wrapped up in the movie before I knew it. It was like, wow, I mean, this just from the get go, it has like this some really well put together moments, and it's like it's this really great spanning narrative. It's not just kind of your and then the orca goes down south. You know, it's nothing like that. It's nothing like and then the animals do this. It's not like a March of the Penguins sort of thing. It's not like that. You know, it's just like, okay, well, they're doing this now, and then they're doing that, and you know, hey, we like whales. It's none of that. It's an interesting narrative that they're playing out here. You got like these really good interviews. Tonally, it's great, and the score's fantastic. And I thought it was a very well made documentary. And I think end of the day, whether people come down with controversy, but I will be addressing kind of a lot of the controversial parts of it, just working into our conversation, I guess. I think just whether you take issue with its findings or not, it's much like many documentaries, especially as, for example, let's not get on a whole tangent about it, bear in mind, but kind of my big kind of example for documentaries where you kind of people are split on the findings after they see the movie. Michael Moore's documentaries, big one being Bowling for Columbine. Again,
I like Bowling for Columbine a lot more than I like this, but I do think that in general, this is very in line with a Michael Moore movie. Incredibly in line.
I'm saying much like Bowling for Columbine, Tiki. I'm in the mindset that I think it's well made. I'm using Bowling for Columbine as an example, not a comparison. Just, you know, it's
no, but I do think it's a good comparison just in terms of the style. But I'll get into it with my my viewpoint in a second.
Yeah, what I mean is, like, you know, it's a really good movie, and, you know, until you really kind of you hear like there was some questioning about the findings and stuff. Like, you know, Michael Moore might stage some things again, so it's up in the air. And there are other documentaries that really go into the whole like questioning the findings. And but I mean, when you see it for the first time, you're in the moment. That you've got to agree whether or not you analyze like how much of it was real or not. You got to admit, just as a film itself, it accomplishes what it sets out to do, and it was really entertaining. It was really compelling. Both, I'm just saying, you know, this film is as well as Bowling for Columbine, but this film particularly is specifying this. And just to set up my viewpoint, just going into this conversation last time before we shift to you, friend, is that I spent in preparation for this just to kind of after hearing all the controversy and the findings, I just never gave mine. It's like, okay, well, people are always going to be split on it. It's like people says, oh, people who love SeaWorld, it's like, okay, I can't possibly be real. But, looking into it, I found, there is some truth to what they're saying. But I got to tell you, when I just reanalyzed and preparing for this conversation, I combed over this movie many times, and I found, to my surprise, I thought it was just going to be like a thing I like, but there's still like a lot of evidence. And I said, I tell you, though, I'm more on the movie side than I ever thought I would be. I'm
this is going to be a fun conversation.
Because I looked over, I gave it as critical a thought as I could. I mean, I looked at every moment in the film, just kind of judged it as best I could, of like how much of this could be factual or not, and just like how much of it could be forged or not. And I'm surprised to find that it's more on the level than I think people give it credit for, and we'll get into that in the conversation to see if I'm crazy or not. But again, I don't think I am. I genuinely, as far as I can tell, I find there's a lot more accuracy in this movie than people give it credit for. Anyway,
okay.
That's my statement on the film so far.
You want a blanket thesis statement, Dragon? I'll give you a blanket thesis statement.
Don't make it just cynical, would you?
I'll make it cynical. This is the most manipulative documentary I have ever seen. And I'm a fan of documentaries. This is the most emotionally manipulative thing I have ever seen. Granted, like we said with Bowling for Columbine, Michael Moore has made a career out of emotional manipulation. I think that's how he gets his movies made. I think Michael Moore is a very, very good comparison for this movie. This movie, it basically takes the actual truth of how SeaWorld operates and just takes a hacksaw and just highlights the negative things that they want you to see without highlighting any of the positive things that SeaWorld does. That's what pisses me off about this movie. SeaWorld does a lot in terms of like they've donated millions, I want to say probably billions to conservation efforts. Most of their whales that they have now are bred, and it's not like SeaWorld's going around and just capturing whales now. It happened in the 70s. Everyone at SeaWorld now acknowledges that what happened in the 70s wasn't right. Basically, it's kind of funny because I feel like right now SeaWorld is kind of making the best out of a bad situation where they have these whales that have been bred in captivity. They can't really be released out into the wild because what people don't realize about whales being released out into the open ocean is it's such a drastic change in the environment for them that it's actually quite dangerous to do it because you have like SeaWorld can control their environment as much as possible. They can have like the perfect temperature. You don't have to have any predator. Like with the open ocean, there's predators. There's the temperature is constantly changing. So a whale that's bred in captivity can't just be released out into the open ocean. It just doesn't work like that. So basically SeaWorld, their ethics, look, I don't entirely think, the whole thing dating back to the 70s and everything, it's not right. It wasn't right. But I think from a bad situation point of view, SeaWorld's making the best of it. And I do think they're one of the beacons of conservation and entertainment. And I feel like this movie just kind of like for the sake of doing a compelling narrative was just like shitting all over that. And I think that actually does more harm than good when it comes to conservation as a whole. And I feel very strongly about that. I feel like if people want to put effort into conservation and feel very strongly about that, they should put effort into like donating to anti-poaching charities in Africa and stuff like that. Causes that actually need attention, like anti-dog abuse and stuff like that. I think with SeaWorld, a lot of the stuff that Blackfish points out is stuff that's archaic and SeaWorld doesn't actually adhere to anymore. And it's kind of like SeaWorld, in a way, it's kind of like an examination of SeaWorld in the 80s and 90s. But what they fail to point out is that a lot of the policies of SeaWorld have changed since then. So I'm sorry, Dragon. I hate to get political with this, but that's my general stance. So
I think we're going to have an interesting conversation because, again, my findings on a lot of this stuff, oh boy, I believe me, I really going to rely on you on the positive stuff because, again, I'm uninformed on that side of it. I mean, I've kind of found where I think they're getting a lot of their stuff on the money in this movie, though. We'll get into it. I'm just saying, I think it's going to be a good conversation, too.
Okay.
So, let's see. Well, boy, where is this? So again, but I guess before we really get into before we get into kind of like trading blows here proverbially.
Oh God.
Let's talk about some like stuff we do like from the movie, because I know you're not like things that the movie does get right. And I want to kind of highlight not a lot. I don't want to spend too much time on this kind of. So we should kind of talk about the movie a little bit before we talk about like the stuff said about the movie. Like,
I mean, I do think the movie is effective for what it sets out to accomplish. I just think what it sets out to accomplish is destructive and does more harm than good for the actual message of the movie. But
well, let me tell you again, just something I really love about this movie, and again, the effectiveness. And I guess my main kind of argument that I'll be getting into shortly is I guess I'm going to start it here though, is that. I think my favorite moment in the film connects to a lot of what I'm arguing here. Is that my favorite moment in the film? It's the moment that just kind of stuck out to me is like this is.
Is it the whale penis?
No. Oh, why?
I've got to bring it up. I was watching it today and I was like, oh God, that's right. They have a whole extended whale penis scene and it's got like funny music and everything. That's one of the reasons I don't like this movie, Dragon.
Okay, well, let's find some common ground. I will 100% agree that is my least favorite scene.
Okay, thank you.
I will agree with you there. I like the ending of that scene, though. I like the creepy twist of it all at the end, though.
All right, fair enough.
Remember, the creepy twist at the end is the idea that it's all happy-go-lucky music, but again, it's like it's propagating doom for the whales.
Right.
I like that twist and all, but I think it's most.
I don't think the happy-go-lucky music was necessary. That's kind of what I had a problem with.
I mean, I like the juxtaposition with the happy-go-lucky music, with kind of the dark implications. But it's so weird. We don't need to see. Why are we seeing this?
Exactly.
Come on, I don't need to know what that process looks like. Oh, come on. Anyway, so seriously though,
I'm sorry, you set it up with my favorite moment. Anyway.
Okay, but can I actually talk about the moment that
yes, go ahead.
The big reason I defend this movie? It's kind of an adventure blue dude's camp here, but this is what super enticed me for the film. Aside from just kind of like the clever opening I think they have. This is the moment though, really. It's in the 14-minute mark. I love it so much. It's that I think the movie is very effective in its editing. I like all the little touches like the VHS effect. It feels really kind of like, you're right, like in the moments where we go to the 80s, you have these really great edits to what we cut from kind of the dark stuff to kind of our happy-go-lucky 80s and 90s commercials. Like, golly walkers, I want to go to SeaWorld.
Golly gee whiz, I love it when the whale splashes everyone and we all get wet.
Yeah, that thing. And again, one of the huge elements I think really complements this film. For my two favorite moments in this movie are so, in large part, are made by the Jeff Beal score. And Jeff Beal, folks, he scored two very specific things people will recognize. Monk, he did the score for Monk and did a great job of that show. But I think the one people know him for currently is House of Cards. The guy who does the score for House of Cards.
Okay.
Point is, Jeff Beal, excellent composer. But here's my scene, folks. If I can just like sell anyone on this movie, it's the premise with this one scene. It's the Tillicum's journey moment, I call it. I love it when we have our fisherman. I also looked into the making of this film, so I know this guy's pretty much, he was off the map. People thought he was dead, but our filmmaker, our director found him, like literally by going through a phone book until she found like the right one. It wasn't like that exactly. But it was like,
I know.
But anyway, so what happens is like you have this really kind of gruff kind of fisherman. Again, you're right. Now I'll piggyback on your big point that you brought up, which is very accurate, and I'll get to my defense of that. The whole the terrible whale stuff, the one on the 70s, where we see that moment in the film.
I will absolutely say that is 100% accurate. I will not argue it at all. It's the most effective part of the movie. It's the most sad part of the movie. I think everything that comes after it is a little. Yeah, it's where I start to have issues. But
let me tell you the moment, though. It's not just him regaling with the story. Don't get me wrong, that's effective and that's great, and I love that too. Just him kind of going like him, the hunter, the fisherman, the whale fisherman hunter, if you want. I know he's a hunter, the whale hunter. Anyway, when he's regaling you with kind of the realization as a young man, the horror of what he's done, you gotta remember he's really uncomfortable telling that story because he's basically admitting, yes, I was part of the Holocaust, essentially.
Exactly, right.
But for whales, I'm part of the marine Holocaust.
Oh god.
But seriously, at the end of it, he says, like, I've seen like 2 presidencies, a lot of wars break out, all that stuff. He says he's lived through a lot of stuff, and is the moment that gets me. It's like, oh, this is what I chill. It goes up my spine. Like, this is such an awesome bit in this movie. Where he says, I have it in quotations, such a great moment where he says,
Okay.
the worst thing I've ever done is hunt that whale. And then we see it just cuts to with the Jeff Beal music playing. I love the Tillicum theme when it plays. And it's like the great setup for the movie is that they name it's on and black screen text before we see Tillicum being loaded up. It says they named him Tillicum. 1983, they found a whale in the North Atlantic. They named him Tillicum.
You see, I honestly think that's just a cheesy, like, my whole problem is this movie totally makes Tillicum out to be like a fucking complicated slasher movie character.
Well, here's the thing. I don't see it as a lot of people mark this movie as kind of like a psychological thrill. I do think it's a thrill. I'm not sure if it's like a psychological thrill or a slasher film precisely, but I do think Tillicum absolutely is kind of our main character. I think he's kind of a big, interesting part of this movie that you get to see. Again, Tillicum, here's what I mean. This is gonna sound silly, I know, but go with me on it. Is that the movie is called
the James Gordon of Blackfish?
No,
I'm sorry, that was mean. That was mean.
Come on,
I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. I apologize. I was legitimately mean. Go ahead.
Okay, so the movie, not realizing how mean that was. Come on, man.
I apologize. I apologize. That was a low blow.
Anyway, so. The movie is called...
I've had a migraine all day. I've got a salty sense of humor.
Right, that's an excuse for it. Right, okay. So the movie's called Blackfish, and again, before the obvious thing was said in the movie review, where it's a Blackfish, because again, there's also a great thematic thing for the movie, I guess, is that they're called Blackfish because they are not to be messed with. Essentially, that's what it translates to. Yeah, Blackfish is it kind of symbolizes they're not to be messed with. But I mean, what I kind of initially, and this is like the silly my interpretation of the title, is that it's called Blackfish because it's kind of like Tillicum, our main guy, whales as a whole, but mainly Tillicum. He's kind of blacklisted with the misnomer that he is a dangerous killer whale. And really, as we discover in the film, like he's sold right from the get go as kind of this. This psychotic monster who's going to be like kind of a Hannibal Lecter of a whale, but no, he's not. You see what drives him to it. It's kind of like the great kind of statement on the film is like you're going on the misnomer of like, okay, so the film literally opened with a whale has killed a trainer, really tragic, effective opening, and you think, oh my God, it's like then they have this great build in this moment here where it says, it's like the worst thing I've taken. How is that not like a great build for that misnomer? Is that I've seen like people being overthrown in 2 presidencies, and the worst thing I've ever done is hunt that whale. And just that whale, then we just have that great build of like kind of not a Jaws theme, just like that din 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 din. Just saying like now he's on his way. He's on his way to kind of influence the story. He's on his way to kill that trainer eventually. It's like saying, and then over time you realize it wasn't his fault. He was kind of brought to that moment. And again, I think Tillicum is like this. I don't want to say multifaceted because we don't really get to know him that well, but he's kind of this character we do get to know over the course of time. We get to see what kind of drove him to that. We sympathize with Tillicum. I'm not saying we need to go over to the level that kind of the whale supporters are at the end of it, but I'm not saying they're wrong or anything. I'm just saying the point is there's more to Tillicum than just kind of being a psycho killer whale.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Which
he's not, and I like that. That's the great kind of misnomer that's set up in the beginning so well.
All right, fair enough. I mean, I just my whole problem, like I said, it's just this whole movie. It feels like a horror movie to me. It just kind of feels like you've got the music. I mean, the score is effective, but I feel like they use the score in a manipulative kind of way, where they play like ominous music. It's like you see just a tree. At the beginning, it's like you just see footage of just SeaWorld trainers doing normal routines. But you got the fucking ominous music, so it's like obviously a fucking Jaws now, It's like it puts you on edge, and I don't know. It's just
you can believe me, I literally have like pages of notes refuting the points you're making right now. So I get to actually get through this little love part here.
Oh god. Okay, well let's just get to it because I mean, for me, I do admire certain scenes in this movie. Probably the scene that's the hardest for me to look at, like. I've got to say, like, whenever I watch this scene in particular in the movie, it does, like, okay, I've got to kind of take pause and be like, I can't argue with it. That's really fucking sad.
You're going to bring up the moment I have as my other favorite moment of the movie. Go on.
The moment where the baby whale gets separated from the mother.
That's my moment.
I can't argue with that. I mean, you know, it's like the one thing I'll say is like I don't necessarily think the sound clips we hear of the orca is the actual sound clips. They do just play orca sounds, but I digress. That's just kind of like documentary filmmaking. It's just the story in itself. It's heartbreaking, and I can't watch that scene and not get emotional.
But I tell you, it's just that the power of that scene. Again, you just mentioned kind of like the ominous kind of Jeff Beal score. This is the other Jeff Beal score I love. It's like the saddest, most emotional, kind of like perfect score for that moment. Like Kasaka. I'm talking about specific. I don't know if you're talking about Kasaka or the second whale that got separated, right?
Yeah. Whatever the baby Shamu was. Yeah.
Yeah, because like the first one was Shamu was the first one, and that's when like the other whales greeted the other mother. Like the quiet whale that ink is like screaming after the kid. Mine's I guess they're very similar, but the second one's has the score behind it, has the really effective. Here's the thing that really hits home was that it's the idea that one of our trainers talking about Kasaka. I believe it's Hardgrove, the one with the short hair. He mentions that Kasaka was Takara was taken away from Kasaka, and Kasaka unleashed kind of a sound, a vocalization.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about, the sound.
Okay, we're good on the same one.
Yeah.
The point is just when he says, maybe there's vocalizations, and that there's basically vocalizations that never been. They brought a marine expert. He says, "Oh, man, these haven't even been attempted by whales," and you can only put two and two together. That she's crying out because the kid was taken away. She hadn't cried out like that beforehand, so because she's sad. So whether people are saying whales can't get emotion, I mean, there is some evidence to suggest that there's a correlation there.
She's the Norma Bates of killer whales.
But seriously, though, how just the moment of like Kasaka just kind of unleashing kind of that long, and then Hardgrove saying if she was creating a new sound to find her, to try and find her child. That's moving. And again, that's when that Jeff Beal score kind of kicks in there, just like that sad moment, like her just kind of sitting in the water after screaming for her child, and then this Hardgrove saying, "That's at the end of the day, those aren't your whales; they're theirs."
All right, so one last bit of positivity on my end. By far the most suspenseful scene in the film, I think, is the story of the trainer.
Ken Peters?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, the Ken Peters. That clip went on for 15 minutes, but we didn't see it in the movie for 15 minutes, and that's how long he was going through that, 15 minutes.
No, just the moment where he gets away and then he starts swimming for his life, and the whale's like right on his tail, and the whale goes over the net and everything.
Ken Peters, when he gets basically here's where you can look at it as we're watching and kind of notice the mistake here. See, when he swims, he's get carefully again throughout the whole thing. It's a really great thing. It's such an effective scene, folks, where he kind of like carefully shimmies down the whale after he's kind of going up and down with his real calm, cool, like he's a scuba diver, so he knows how to kind of breathe appropriately. Anyway, so as he scoots off, you can tell he makes a mistake because he kicks too soon. He kicks like around the whale's
right.
That the whale then turns around, and it looks like okay, they put the barrier up, so the whale's hopefully not going to go over. The whale goes over. See Ken Peters, he's finally on the surface, and he looks like
the whale goes over the barrier and he's like right on his tail. That is one of the most horrific things I have ever seen.
And the guy's been like dragged by both legs, so then he's like running. This man with crippled legs, essentially not fully crippled, like damaged legs, is running for his leg, and you see the fear on his face.
And that's good. That stuff's good.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, they capture the atmosphere like that. And I think that is kind of connecting to that Tillicum thing I'm talking about. It's like it has these great kind of impactful moments that are really conveying a lot of story, and that really kind of gets paid off. It's like building kind of the myth and the danger. It's building kind of these whales. I mean, again, you're going to notice that Tillicum is not kind of like a clear-cut villain or anything. He's not like or anything. He's not. But there still is a danger affiliated with these guys, and the idea that Tillicum kind of opened the floodgates for all of these kind of conceptions, make you look twice at a whale or an accident that goes on at SeaWorld. Like, well, wait a minute. I mean, did something bring about that?
Right.
You know?
Okay, so let's kind of get into our little debate here.
Well, before we start, I want to make a statement just to highlight what our filmmakers' goal was specifically with this film. Now, whether we agree with that or not, I just want to say what the on the record kind of what the director has said. So Gabriella, hope God she has a long last name now.
Good luck.
Calperthwaite. That's the best I can do. I'm sorry, lady. Gabriella Calperthwaite. She has so basically her statement on the movie, and she defends the film. She says she stands by the findings. She says there was no agenda. She's just a mother who when she found out about what happened to Donna Branchfield, the trainer, again, is the inciting incident of the movie, she said she found out about this. She was the mother just questioning, simple question of, how does a trainer die at SeaWorld? And in the investigation, her findings that kind of led to Blackfish. And that's all I really have to say. Now we can get into it. So I guess should we go to like main controversy? You want to start us off, and I'll kind of see what I can
Let
say about it.
me let me start with the biggest issue I have with this movie, and it's the fact that they basically completely ignore all of SeaWorld's conservation efforts throughout the 2000s.
Well, can you do me a favor and highlight that? Just highlight the good stuff for me, would you?
SeaWorld spends millions upon millions of dollars with rescue and rehabilitation programs where they'll literally like rescue sick and dying and injured animals from the wild, bring them in, and much like Finding Dory, it's very much the Finding Dory thing, the rescue, rehabilitate, release. They do that, and Blackfish just chooses to just completely ignore that in their narrative. But that is actually a big part of the SeaWorld program is the rehabilitation. And they're a company that is devoted to animal rescue. They are a company that is devoted to, to going out, to finding injured animals, to rehabilitating them. The killer whales is a different story. I'll admit that it is kind of a muddy situation with the fact that most of their killer whales are inbred. You kind of have that argument of like, well, like I said, here's the muddy situation you have. Here's the problem where I already kind of went over this. I don't want to kind of go in circles.
I mean, look,
but
I would
I think releasing an orca back into the wild after it's lived a full life in captivity or after it's been bred in captivity is not as simple as you think. And there's a lot of different variables to go into it. And there's a lot of reasons why it's actually more dangerous to release a whale that is born in captivity. Again, I want to stress the born in captivity thing, the raised in captivity.
But you're
thing.
absolutely right, Tiggy. If you release a whale into the wild, it will, that has been raised like it's like imagine you had a goldfish that has been raised, in a sort of water. It's in a familiar environment. You unleash it into the ocean, obviously, aside from the whole saltwater thing, it's still not going to survive like more than 5 seconds.
Right, exactly. So look, I just think the people that I feel like this film. One of the things that really makes me uneasy about just the reaction to the film, and granted, I don't necessarily know if this was the filmmaker's intention or not.
Well, I can shed some light on that. I was going to say it for the end, but I can answer that now if you like.
Okay. Well, hold on. I just think the unfortunate thing is like I feel people just kind of became armchair activists around this film, and SeaWorld has lost a ton of money in that, and in doing so, SeaWorld's conservation efforts have taken a hit. SeaWorld had this thing called the Blue World Project that they were actually in development with as Blackfish was going on and as that controversy was happening. The Blue World Project had to be canceled because of the hit that SeaWorld took from this movie. Ironically enough, the Blue World Project had entirely all to do with improving the living conditions of the killer whales and basically making it like a big giant habitat instead of a tank. Now, granted, they are still doing improvements to the killer whales. They refurbished the tanks, they made them bigger. And an important thing to note that, again, this film completely fails to highlight is they don't even do the shows anymore, Dragon. They don't do the shows. They do quick demonstrations. They have the killer whales out in the tank. You can look at them through the observation area, kind of like with Jurassic World. You can go down and, see them from ground level and stuff like that. And then the trainers will do demonstrations, like quick little 10-minute things. They don't have these big over-the-top productions like they used to do back in the 90s and early 2000s. That's been phased out of SeaWorld, and it's been phased out for quite a while. And it's something that this film completely neglects to mention. My problem with this... Hold on. My problem with this film has less to do with what they do present and more to do with what they fail to mention. That is basically the big thing I hold against this film. It crafts a narrative and picks and chooses which details to include and which details to leave out.
Okay, well, answer me a few things here. I'm going to respond to this here. So, one is, remind me, the Dawn Branch owns him. What was that before they changed? They put the whole observation thing on the water with the 10-minute shows, or was that before?
She was way back in the 90s. Way back in the 90s. I mean, what? I'm just saying. Everything that you see in Blackfish is like the 80s and 90s. Everything.
No. Oh, man. One more. So I'm saying, did they change things up before her accident or afterwards?
After.
No, she didn't go down in the 90s. She went down in 2010.
Okay.
I'm talking about Dawn Brancher, the one with the pony. It's the one.
Gotcha.
That's
right.
the thing. I think you're thinking of the earlier one. Different. It was before.
No, you're right. I got it confused. I'm sorry. Yeah.
I'm saying. Well, let me say this again. I want to just. You made an honest mistake. I get this. It's well, a few things though. And I would attest that I believe that the one. It's so odd, Tiki. It's a really interesting thing. It's that after the end result of this movie, you're right. I think it's Boris. I didn't know about the blue. I didn't know about the Blue Planet Project. Is that what it's called?
Blue World Project.
Blue World Project. I didn't know about the Blue World Project, and oddly enough, the director's intent was for the Blue World Project. So I mean, it's kind of counterintuitive. I did not know that.
Exactly.
But here's the thing, though. I mean, it's the same. Oddly enough, they still got the same result, though. Don't get me wrong. It's this weird penance for SeaWorld because again, I'm a big thing I'm going to be testing to in this is that SeaWorld did make mistakes. You're right, back in the 70s, and this film, I would argue, the main story of this film is exploring the ramifications of that mistake. It is exploring the ramifications of this mistake in the 70s that did carry over and did bring about Tillicum, which at the end, all that stuff is on SeaWorld, and that does connect to all the stuff that happens with Tillicum. All the Tillicum stuff, I would argue, out of anything, the rest of it, you're right, does have a lot of subjectivity to it, but I would say out of anything, the Tillicum stuff seems to be the most on the money.
Yeah, I'll agree to that.
And of course, that connects to Dawn Brancher and her accent. Sounding all consistent, just making sure it sounds. So far, it sounds so far so good. I mean, the main goal is to get them to stop performing and to open up the exhibit so it's more observation versus performing, and that seems to be what they've got. I mean,
that's exactly what it is now. There are no full-scale shows. It's kind of the same way at Discovery Kingdom, where they don't really do full-scale shows with the animals now. They do kind of what's called demonstrations. So
I mean, it sounds like they both kind of got the same thing in the end, but it was just a kind of more painful process. I mean, basically, it was
I think the unfortunate part was it took a hit from SeaWorld's reputation that I don't think they're going to recover from anytime.
But here's the interesting thing I want to point out here, Tiki, is that what we see in this movie, what is presented, is that we do see a lot of kind of SeaWorld making mistakes. And in a way, it's like something that eventually they would have done on their own accord. But I think it's safe to say it would have taken time, right? Would it have taken time?
No, the Blue World Project was in development as Blackfish was. It's kind of funny that they coincided with each other.
Yeah, it's just the way
they publicly announced the Blue World Project after Blackfish, but it had been in development for a while.
But here's the thing, though. You think Blackfish kind of lit a fire under to make sure that happens in a lot sooner. And gets a lot of support to make that happen faster than it would have. Because the way SeaWorld is arguing...
But then ironically enough, it did light a fire under them. They did want to do it, but then ironically enough, they had to cancel it because all throughout the board, they can't really do much of anything in terms of SeaWorld expansion because of the hit that this took.
Okay, let me say, make sure I'm not wrong on this. Just want to make sure that so the tanks have been expanded so more observation of the whales.
The tanks have been expanded. They've been refurbished. And it's way more lenient on people going in like you see in this photo. Like the observing the whales from behind glass and stuff. The trainers don't actively interact with the whales anymore. There's a barrier between the trainer and the whale. The trainer is there mostly to just exposit facts and everything, and it'll still interact with the whale in terms of doing the routines and stuff. But there's far more. It's like steps have been taken to remedy this, and it bothers me that Blackfish doesn't address it. It bothers me that the narrative of Blackfish essentially, for the most part, you're right. The Dawn thing does kind of come back, and that's the 2010. But for the most part, they kind of frame the narrative of Blackfish around a lot of events that happened earlier on in SeaWorld's history, and a lot of stuff that SeaWorld has since remedied.
Well, the way it plays in the movies, I'm just saying the way it plays in the movie, kind of your average Joe coming into it, again, I've only been to SeaWorld once, and again, I think I'm the target audience on this. As someone who's barely been to SeaWorld, it's kind of, again, I don't want to sell myself as I am the target audience. I'm not. I'm just saying, I think it's your average Joe who knows very little about SeaWorld. That's what I mean. It seems to me they're playing SeaWorld as the way I interpret the way a lot of my findings that went here is that SeaWorld has covered up a lot of stuff. They tried to cover up a lot of the accidents. They tried to pawn up on other people. It seems like regardless, SeaWorld needed to be punished in some way for a lot of stuff they do. Again, don't get me wrong. They didn't highlight the concert.
detail with some of it, but I feel like a lot of the stuff, like a lot of the cover-up type stuff, is exaggerated. I don't want to get into detail as of why. I think a lot of most of the people that were interviewed for this movie were disgruntled SeaWorld employees. They had reason to make the company look bad.
I don't deal with that point there with the people we do see in this movie. I mean, at least three of them are the male trainers. I don't know about the female one, but I know about the male trainers. At least John Hargrove and Ventry. I mean, they, because of their experiences with SeaWorld, they become actual experts on whales and everything afterwards. I mean, they actually did care about these whales, and they actually began. I think they're really passionate about it, because I think it goes to show. I mean, they go from just being average Joes as trainers. They know a routine and stuff. Then they actually kind of take a big interest in that. I don't think they really have anything to lose or to gain from that, except just kind of helping the whales. That's the way it plays to me, and that's the way it seems to me. I can't really think of why they want it.
I'm just saying it's not necessarily. I'm sure they are sympathetic towards the whales themselves. Having said that, they're very much in line with the film's agenda of making SeaWorld look bad.
And again, what's presented. I mean, look, I would argue that it is biased, but the reason it's biased is because SeaWorld did not offer, SeaWorld didn't offer many interviews. Their one representative is just a guy who had fine feelings about SeaWorld, was giving his 2 cents on the matter. We'll get to him in a moment. But the point is, SeaWorld declined, because they declined interviews. You only get one side of the story. Which leads to, of course, it has to be a biased movie. There's no information coming from the other side. It means everyone else is uninformed of any information SeaWorld has on the matter. And so you're saying the donations in the past made by SeaWorld, it wasn't specifically for the orcas?
No, it was for everything. Just in general, just marine wildlife, marine research. The orcas are kind of a different story in terms of SeaWorld, because, like I said, we do have the issue of most of the orcas from SeaWorld are bred in captivity and raised in captivity. So having said that, like I said, there is definitely a release and a rehabilitate and release program with SeaWorld. They do a lot of conservation efforts. They have a whole additional kind of subsection of the Orlando park that's just devoted to that. That's just like, I believe that's kind of fenced off to the general public. So there's a lot of stuff there's a lot of things that SeaWorld does. SeaWorld as a company is very devoted to the idea of preserving marine life.
Okay, but was any of that specifically tailored to, like, any of the positives specifically tailored to the orcas? I think it's why they would have left it out, because it's focusing on the orca story, and they want to kind of muddy the horse, but about the other wildlife. That's why they didn't bring up any other animals. So there was a thing they mentioned, like they want to talk about the sea.
No, it is not directly related to the orcas, but I do feel like the film presents this narrative where SeaWorld is just kind of this heartless conglomerate of a company that only cares about the bottom line and only cares about the dollar and only cares about their reputation, when in reality they're actually, like, in terms of like wildlife conservation, they are one of the most they've done a lot. Like, they have done a lot for wildlife conservation in general.
The fact they've done a lot of wrong at the same time, doesn't that still require some addressment, though?
It does, but I feel like it's not fair to just completely ignore the fact that they do rehabilitate animals, that they do release them back into the wild. I think it's unfair to just kind of, like, look at this one element, but then, like, you've got to keep in mind, SeaWorlds are big parks, and the killer whales are only, like, one small section of those parks. Yes, I agree. They are certainly the main attraction. They are obviously, like, the icon of the park, for sure. I'm not doubting that. But SeaWorld, there's a crap ton of it. That park has polar bears. It's got manatees. There's a whole plethora of other marine life in SeaWorld. And I understand your point, Dragon. I understand that, you want to focus on the orcas. It is a story about the orcas. It just bothers me that SeaWorld has done so much for conservation, and they do very much rely on I should say, but they do very much adhere to. They do have programs for where they will find and take in and take care of and help restore and then rehabilitate and release. I feel like I'm just doing an ad for Finding Dory right now, but they do all that. It's like, I feel like what we saw in Finding Dory, like, the system that they had in place there is very accurate to how SeaWorld operates a lot of stuff.
I mean, look, before I guess we move on to more other topics from the discuss here as well. I mean, you know, I'm thinking I'm just still in this place where I'm still. It strikes me that there's focus on again, all that stuff sounds great to you, but again, it sounds like the problem area is still the killer whales, and that's what they're really focusing on their
You know
storyline.
what
Again,
the problem area is, and I'll agree with you there. Like I said, the problem area is that the fact that the killer whales are not only like, I will agree there is a little bit of morally gray area there.
that's the film's point to talk about that specific part of it.
Sure. I think a bigger problem with it, though, is just the fact that, you know, obviously Shamu is like the icon of SeaWorld. Shamu is like the Mickey Mouse of SeaWorld, if you will.
So I'm glad that it's impressive they didn't really focus too much on Shamu. Shamu's like part of the movie, don't get me wrong, but like a very small part, as you would expect. Like Killer Whale's Shamu poster child. They didn't really do that.
Right. But anyways, you know, it's just like I said, you know, just.
Again, I would say I think they have more of another side if SeaWorld actually kind of sent an actual spokesperson, not someone who's like a former spokesperson down there, and address some of this stuff. And because of that, that's why you get a biased thing. I'm not saying it's like it's open fully to both sides. It can only be as open as it can be. But again, these are people who've been on the other side of SeaWorld. And that's why it has no other choice but to be biased. And think about it too, SeaWorld is really protective of any accident footage. That's why what they have is like stuff you can find publicly on YouTube. And for people have made the point and like the big kind of criticisms that they say in that sequence, in the really effective, like you said, kind of the great Jeff Beal score sounds really menacing, but we have that montage of the kind of the terrifying accident montage. I mean, look, from what I found on YouTube, I mean, those clips are in their entirety. There's nothing really added to the mix there of like anything kind of making it seem like it's not what you see on screen.
Right there's one thing. There's one
thing. I know, I was about to mention it, Tiki.
Okay. I'm sorry.
With the exception of one thing that is, again, it raises this interesting question. I mean, it's why I think the movie is kind of an interesting beast on the rewatch, because now you have, when you're looking for kind of like where the things could have been manipulated, you find moments like this, where big thing, John Hargrove specifically, one of our guys in the movie, you do see him, and one of the trainers that Tika and I have been citing a lot, this guy, you know, he does attest that he was there during this moment, and they don't explain in the film, and it is serving their purpose for the movie, but it wasn't exactly as you assumed the rest of the montage would have you believe that was a whale accident. The most kind of visual. John Hargrove, he appears the last bit of the montage, is John Hargrove has a lot of blood on his face with kind of the bloody smile moment where he has like a gash on his head and he's all smiling. You would assume, we didn't see it, but we assume, okay, he was one of the many injured in the whale montage there.
Yep.
Like, you know, well, don't get me wrong, again, we did see a lot of brutal stuff in that thing, but you know, whales kind of like taking this poor trainer's like he's like trying to reach for other help and he's just being dragged away and like kind of body slammed by this whale. You see like a girl in a bikini riding away. See all these sort of moments, and you would assume, okay, well, he's been injured by it, but according to this other trainer, who, again, he's giving us a good outside, unbiased perspective. Again, we could have used more guys like him in there, but again, where were they? He brings up that, okay, he's slammed into a screen, like slipped and hit into a screen at some point, and that's why he's bloody in that moment. So again, that is an absolute example of them kind of showing some manipulation there. So again, you're right. It isn't completely clear cut on either side. I'm just saying I think it's a little more skewed to like, oh, this did actually happen. I mean, there's a lot of like blatant evidence that a whole lot of this happened. All it took himself, to my opinion, all it took himself is on the money. Everything else after it's like this real interesting thing where Tillicum stuff is on the money, but because we don't have all the answers and other stuff, because of Tillicum, this happened with one whale, opens the floodgates to, okay, wait a minute, what about other whale accidents? And looking into that's where you get all the hearsay and the subjectivity, like, well, I'm not sure. There's a little more to that one than that one. Because there is obvious manipulation. A big example of the manipulation, TK, I will attest to, and this is something I found out in my findings here, Luna. Know anything about Luna?
Luna. Was that the park in Spain?
No, it's Laura Parker, which we'll get to. But okay. Luna was the there's a shot that you're right, is direct manipulation. But we'll get into it. Luna was this friendly whale that a little clip of the friendly whale that has the little hose and it's like spraying the boat, spraying the balloon. It's like the dog and the family are coming up. Oh, look, it's a little whale, and they pet the whale. The dog's like coming close to it, ringing any bells.
Kind of.
Point is, Luna comes up to the boat, and this is the line that is set to this is whales haven't been killed in the wild, or like whales don't really kill in the wild or anything like that. Now, I would say this, it's I would say the main purpose of this scene, I would argue, because it's a direct manipulation of like, okay, we're on the whale side because it's so cute. How can we not be on the whale side? Understandable, absolute manipulation there. But I would argue that I think it's them kind of, they are trying to manipulate us, but what it is that they're really just stretching the point. Is that they're showing that killer, because killer is in the name of killer. It's addressing the point you had as a kid. It's that just because killer's in the name doesn't mean they're actual killers. So you can see whales can go up to your average Joe and your families, and from a boat observing them, they can be real friendly if they come up to you. But other footage that this guy, as I believe our trainer guys also pointed out, is that, well, if you're in the wild, and there's some video footage of this again on YouTube, again, you can find a lot of stuff. They didn't show this in the movie, but it's a fact that, if you screw around with the whales, if you swim with them, that's not a good idea unless you're a trained person. Like a girl swimming with a whale, like kind of attaching herself to its bag, and she gets attacked. Of course, you're going to get attacked if you're stupid like that.
Okay, I want to take that. I want to take that point that you just made, and I agree with you. And then I want to parlay that into another, like, I have a problem with the way this movie concludes, not with the final message of the movie. I think, you know what I do really like? I really like the message of, like, when we look back in 50 years, we're going to think, wow, how uncivilized were we? And look, I do like that message because I do like the way that SeaWorld is going, where it is less about like, oh, look at these tricks that the animals can do. And now it's more about, observing the animals, educating people about animals, which, keep in mind, was SeaWorld's main intention from the get-go. Outside of obviously their company, they want to make money. It's like with SeaWorld, I think the positive thing with SeaWorld that this documentary does highlight, I will give you this. This is one of the few things this documentary does highlight in a positive light. Is SeaWorld is a place where it inspires people to want to learn more about animals. It inspires people to want to protect animals and want to have a relationship with animals. And I feel like that is a very powerful thing. It really is like SeaWorld is a great educational tool, and it's a great tool to like let's say for like a kid from the Midwest, let's say a kid living in San Antonio, Texas, do you think people in fucking San Antonio, Texas are going to see SeaWorld or going to see killer whales if it weren't for the SeaWorld? It's like, it gives you an opportunity to get up close and personal with animals and with wildlife in a way that you wouldn't otherwise. And I feel like that is, it's a good educational tool. And granted, I will, there is obviously some moral ambiguity with it, but I do just think the exposure that children have to killer whales and have to these animals in general, it's much like the idea of a zoo where it's for a good cause, it's to educate. But so one of the things,
sorry.
So I have a problem with the way that this movie kind of wraps up, where it's like the narrative of the park in Spain, and then also very particular, just because you mentioned like you don't want to mess around with killer whales, otherwise, yeah, obviously. I have a problem with how they frame the whole story of like the drifter guy sneaking into SeaWorld and swimming with the whale, because yeah, no shit. Obviously that's a recipe waiting to happen, and it's not like I hate how it's like I get that the point of that is like framing how the press kind of covered up like where he drowned or he had hypothermia instead of getting attacked. I get that, but I just think
I gotta tell you though, how just looking at it as a movie before we look at it for like kind of like ambiguity of whether it happened or not, as you know what I mean, not happened or not, but how accurate it is. As a film device, I love the ambiguity in that scene. In that there's that great idea of like he was mauled and he was taken apart. Again, if you have like a play toy, essentially dead or not by the whale's hands, as if he just died of hypothermia, let's say, and he's floating in the water. Of course, he's going to become a demented play toy for the whale, which means he's going to suffer a lot of damage like that. And so I love the question, kind of this terrifying question of like they can't tell if he was killed. If he was dead before he was kind of mauled to pieces,
right?
Like bit the pieces and like drenched on his back, or if there was an aftermath.
But my whole problem with the scene is that it kind of just perpetuates this whole like Tillicum is an anthropomorphic kind of like really complicated murderer, Well,
let me tell you what I get from that scene. I'm sorry.
Well, just really quick, like I said, it's like obviously, if you're fucking sneaking into SeaWorld and swimming around in the tanks that's frankly, the guy kind of had it coming.
I mean,
because
look,
that's just,
we know the guy's dead either way, and that's the point. The guy's, if you jump into that thing, you're going to be dead.
yeah,
There's no questioning that one. But what I get from that scene, though, was less about Tillicum killing it. Again, I like the idea. Essentially, you don't love this comparison, I know. This is
does it involve James Gordon?
No, it doesn't.
I'm just kidding. I'm ribbing you.
It's kind of like literally like a Bates Motel thing. It's yet another death that he's not implicated with.
Would you say that the orca fisherman is the James Gordon of this movie?
No.
Okay.
Listen, I'll force Jim Gordon in when I see fit, all right?
All right, fair enough.
Okay. Do you see Tom Hanks in this picture? I didn't think so.
Oh, God.
Anyway, what I was saying, it's kind of like kind of a Bates Motel. Like, again, it's an excuse to have Norman kill without him having to kill him. But, it's a real life example. Someone is dead inside the tank. You don't know whether it did or not. Here's what I took from it, though. Less about that. But again, this is where we get into kind of this cover-up territory. That again is showing that SeaWorld does have a dark side that doesn't get advertised as much. And I think that's the purpose of the film, showing, especially the orcas, which is in that morally gray area. And then with the orca, with all that stuff, there is a side of SeaWorld that we don't see, and that's what this one's about. Where the idea is cover up that all these security cameras, and yet was not seen. No one was alerted to this guy jumping in there. A guy enters the park at night, and there's no evidence of this, and it just happens to disappear. Poof! Like there's no record of this guy jumping in the pool until he's found the next morning. That is suspect, absolutely. And what he said in the movie, I 100% agree with that. That is very fishy. No pun.
Okay. So can we talk about the Spain thing?
Okay, so let's talk about Laura Parque. So, okay, Laura Parque, that's a very effective scene.
My whole problem with it is that it feels just very disjointed from the rest of the narrative. It kind of feels like it almost kind of feels like a short, like 15-minute documentary that is like loosely connected to all the other stuff going on.
Well, remember, the point of it at the end is to catch SeaWorld in a very direct, very open lie, which is unavoidable. That is absolutely SeaWorld doing something really bad there, where they're denying any involvement, because they send SeaWorld whales to Laura Parque, which again they claim, oh no, that's not us. We don't know them at all. That's, I said, no affiliation whatsoever, which is a direct lie. That's the point of that scene.
Okay.
It's also set up for a fatality at the hands of a whale, which is showing, like, again, they really don't kind of go into the, we don't know the trainer that well. Dawn has been built up, so it's just kind of like out there trainer. But I
do think they almost kind of spend an unnecessary amount of time with the fiance of the guy who got, killed.
I think it was a very smart.
I feel like the reason why they do that is just because, like, oh, look, sympathy, like let's add this woman into the narrative and let's give her a lot of screen time just to give it that extra oomph. Now, look, I'm not saying I don't feel bad for this woman. Of course I do. It's a tragedy. But all I'm saying is it just feels like the whole sequence just kind of feels like, and here's this tragic story. And I don't know.
But here's the point of this tragic story. I would argue this is the worst thing SeaWorld does in the whole movie.
Okay.
And here's why. And this is why it justifies this scene being in the movie, is that we do spend some time with them. It's not 15 minutes, but we do spend time with them. It's it feels like a longer 5 minutes. Really quickly,
I personally think the worst thing that SeaWorld does in the movie, besides obviously the whole catching the orcas in the first place in the 70s, this really bothered me. This still bothers me, is where after Dawn's death, they kind of blame it on a trainer error.
Yes.
That I think that is the most malicious thing.
That's more evidence just showing. Again, it's a big strength of this film. Again, as far as I could find in my findings, they're on the money with it. I mean, there's no way around this. Is complicit evidence that SeaWorld is hiding something. They've done bad things. That's the whole premise of movies. Like,
every goddamn company has done bad things.
I know, and this is showing this bad stuff SeaWorld's done.
Okay,
my point is, what was I getting at? All right, Laura Parque is that. So again, it's not 15 minutes, but it's like 5 minutes, but it feels like 10. I'll admit. But again, it's effective. It's effective.
Would you agree it maybe goes on a little too long, especially because of how it's not directly related to SeaWorld?
I think Tiki, again, initially I was in that ballpark saying, very first time I was watching, it's like, it's a little random that we go here. But then again, rewatching, it's like, oh yeah, this is very important. It's just kind of showing like a really bad thing that SeaWorld's it's really terrible. At the end, the punchline, it feels so emotional. Like the way they build it, though, it feels like a really nice little mini story, but it does connect to, again, what SeaWorld's actions have been, like some of the most horrific. Again, not directly like hunting whales, but mostly kind of like business suit worst thing they've ever done.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is, okay, so again, we spent time with the mother and the fiance. It's like building up this really dark punchline, essentially. And it is. It's like, we get this a nice little fiance, sweet mother, and they're talking about the guy, and then seriously, this is the most malicious, evil thing I've heard a company do. It's like they tell the fiance after the accident has happened. Again, I love how they directed this too. I love that it's like
I know what you're gonna say, and I have a rebuttal for it, but I digress. Go ahead.
I like that. We know that we don't see. We just get basically we have their reaction to it. The way that it was is like they're getting a call, and we're getting informed without seeing anything happen. And again, it's that kind of good play on that where they're informed, and they're kind of informed that different information each time, like saying he's been in an accident, but he's at the hospital. They're telling him like they can go see him. So again, it's more information suggesting okay, he's alive, but he's been really hurt, and they go to the morgue, and they're then directed to the morgue, and finding out that, oh my God, SeaWorld, they were buying time with their lawyers to make sure things are right. So that's why they were misdirecting with all the information. Basically representative saying, okay, that he's fine, he's in the hospital, you should go see him quickly, and then basically all this, just the ultimate payoff, like reaching over his chest, like his chest is burst, and just the description of that is horrifying. That's not like them just trying to strengthen the movie by coming up with a fake story. It's absolutely not true.
My rebuttal for it is I don't necessarily think we know all the facts in that situation.
The point is, we know the place is a rundown park. We can see that visually. We see the place is a train wreck. We see it's not really going well. We've seen SeaWorld has done this in the past with their other park. Other park is just like ill-equipped. The park in the very beginning, not SeaWorld itself, but the one, Sealand. We know Sealand, again, the first Phil could kill.
Oh, Sealand is a fucking train wreck. Yeah,
Sealand was a train wreck, and this place was no prize either. Remember, our guy here was the closest thing, and again, this is more justification for why it's in the movies. That a trainer who, again, out of all the people here, is the only one that actually is closest to a SeaWorld trainer. Again, building it that a skilled SeaWorld trainer amongst a bunch of duds in this park, compared to like an excellent SeaWorld trainer who's been built from the very beginning as she's one of the best SeaWorld trainers. Like she's rarely, if ever, had an accident. All the trainers looked up to this one.
Okay.
So you're just seeing kind of the place was ill-trained. It was a horrible idea, and an accident waiting to happen to kind of send whales to this rundown, crappy park, and accident happened. So a nice guy we haven't, we didn't really spend any time with, but I mean, again, just you feel with the family and the loss there, and the idea that they made it so SeaWorld, again, it was the ultimate dark cover-up of like, we made it so we couldn't be culpable, and we covered things up, so we misdirected the family a little bit, and it's so horrible. And then the punchline being like, SeaWorld is not affiliated with these guys.
I want to say something about the misdirect. I do think it's possible that they got the call where I think it's possible that they could. It's like, I don't know. I feel like there's something to be said where I could imagine a situation where they're pulling the guy out of the pool, they're making the call, and they're letting her know about it, and in the moment, just so she's not panicking, they're like, everything's going to be fine, just to kind of keep her calm. And I don't necessarily have that much of a problem with it. I don't necessarily think it's SeaWorld just maliciously being like, oh, muahaha, let's cover it up. I think it was a shitty situation. I think they made a call in a time of panic, and I think that they told her that he's going to be fine just to reassure her and just so she wouldn't panic.
I'm going to tell you 3 reasons why that I don't buy into that one lick. Okay. One, unfortunately, in the real world, companies do things like that.
Okay.
That's a sad, tragic fact of that one. Secondly, I mean, you think just calling her, giving her false hope like that, hey, you might make it, then no, he's dead.
I don't necessarily think it was trying to give her false hope. I just think it was trying to keep her calm.
No, you don't tease like that. Just making it, that is giving her false hope, Tiki. That's like saying you call her telling her that.
We don't know how they phrased it.
You're right, but I mean, they're giving like.
We don't know how they phrased it.
I would imagine the death of your.
Listen to me. It's obviously a traumatic incident for the woman. She's obviously going to have traumatic memories of that phone call. It's obviously not going to be in the best of lights. We don't know how that phone call went down. We don't know what the actual phrasing was.
We don't. I mean, you're right, we don't, but I think you remember a moment like that. I think her regaling us in the story. I mean, she seems pretty composed. I mean, no, she's breaking down in the thing, though. I mean, she's really fluid in her description of it.
Okay, I mean, keep in mind, this is real world stuff. So if I am wrong, I wholeheartedly apologize.
And thirdly, Tiki, I think the most important thing, just that my rebuttal, Tiki, is that the guy's chest burst. It's really hard to come back from that.
Yeah, but again, we don't necessarily look, I'm not an expert on the human body. You're not an expert on the human body.
You're right.
The guy's chest bursting could have been something that happened when they got him to the hospital. It could have been like the rib cage collapse and then it burst as they got him up. It could have been something that happened after they made the phone call.
Believe me, Tiki, never confuse me for a doctor. Believe me, I'll tell you that advice.
You understand where I'm coming from, though. The thing with his chest bursting open could have happened after the phone call. We don't know.
Yeah, but I really don't think chest bursting works. But I don't know. I don't know.
Well, we'll have to ask Ridley Scott about chest bursting.
Tiki, a man is actually dead, and you're referencing Ridley Scott.
I'm sorry.
Tiki, there's a difference between fact and fiction. Tiki, a man was literally most likely crushed by a whale and having his chest burst open.
That was in poor taste. That was in poor taste. I apologize. What do you want?
Anyway, so Laura Park, again, the main build was like them completely denying that, which is then catching them in a lie. Again, a lot of cover-up in this movie, and that they are exposing. And again, so I mean, the end result of
Disney has a lot of cover-up they don't fucking expose.
Hey, Do you
want me to go on a rant about how nobody dies at a Disney park, quote unquote?
We don't have time for it, Tiki. Otherwise, I would get into that and the horribleness of those revelations. But we're not going to spend time on that. Anyway, let's see. Back to this. So let's see. We're like a list of kind of the critiques. I'm just trying to think of where we should go next. So.
We don't have a lot of time. So
I know. I'm just trying to think what's important. Okay, let me tell you something. Again, more catching SeaWorld than a lie here. So again, the James Earl Jones thing. Let's talk about the James Earl Jones point.
Okay.
So James Earl Jones, we love the guy. We do. We love him to pieces.
We were just talking about him in our Father's Day special.
Or how can we not? It's Mufasa. I love the guy.
Mufasa.
And Darth Vader. Not that he was in that video, but Darth Vader too. Yeah.
Darth Vader is an iconic father. you can't take that away from him.
Okay, but seriously, getting back on point though. I mean, the film, one of the opening things in the film is like our trainers kind of regaling how they became trainers. And right off the bat, we catch SeaWorld in kind of a lie there. And that's on video proof of like James Earl Jones being told, having lines written for him to say in the past, he didn't say it specifically, but in the past, it's been reported to take years of study and experience to meet strict requirements to become a SeaWorld trainer. So basically years of study, and come studying marine biology. It is required. It needed that, but again, it's instantly revealed that again, there's like at least from 5, potentially 6. Testimonies that no, you don't. You just need to have personality. You need to look good in a swimsuit. You need to be really good at swimming and just learn the basic procedures. That's all you need to do. Again, that's right there, right from the get-go, saying no, it doesn't require any of that at all. James Earl Jones, we love you, but that's
okay. And you know what? That actually is a point that I can kind of back up, because I do know that most of the people they hire for the dolphin shows at Discovery Kingdom are college kids. So yeah. Anyways.
And again, this and just if I can circle back to Tillicum here, so I kind of have this point down here. I just want to make sure I get by. It's kind of big. It's kind of my main movie here. It's I mean, look, whether it's with your point of like whether it's something that did or still happens in the film. Again, it doesn't still happen to this day. But I mean, just that near what the film presents here is that the film centers around SeaWorld making a selfish and greedy call after they were told way back in the 70s, was what I'm referring to. After they were told not to capture whales in Washington, they go to Iceland. Which you're right, they acknowledge again that was a bad call on their part. That was the past. My point is it still centers around the past. That in 1976 you're told not to hunt, so they go to Iceland and they hunt whales. And of course, Tillicum is then salvaged from one of those ventures, and he ends up in a lousy Sealand park, which their measures of training whales was very flawed, and that led, again, the old SeaWorld tactics is very bad, but it's still the aftermath of what follows is what this film's about. Tillicum's abuse at the hands of the other whales in captivity. Whereas like he's being bullied, he's a huge whale, doesn't have anywhere to go. They weren't prepared for a sort of whale like that back in the day. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's like there is some kind of breaks you have to cut SeaWorld to an extent, but still, I mean, they weren't prepared for this thing at all, and they weren't prepared for like bigger whales, and they're taking them to a lousy park, and SeaWorld basically made a series of bad decisions that led to something really bad happening, and it suggests that all the Tolkien stuff is true. So I know you've agreed with me on that point. It all circles back to just kind of the abuse he suffered at the hands in that park. Again, whether it was like not intentionally, not like, no, let's abuse the grab a whip, let's hurt the whale. It's not that. No, seriously, it's like a lot of bad. It's a series of bad decisions that have come back to roost and come back to hunt Tolkien, and again cast all these dispersions among SeaWorld, among everything else, and a lot of those dispersions apparently are factually accurate because there are a lot of. I know I don't mean to repeat myself, but that's the truth. That's what the movie explores, and a lot of it is just. It's not. I mean, those courtroom transcripts. I mean, now to be fair, any transcript can be taken out of context. That's absolutely feasible. Is absolutely possible. But they were said and they were on paper, and those cannot be denied. What is absolutely on record is like their denials implicitly that no train it wasn't. It was trained. They keep saying it was trainer error, and that like no, we have no affiliation with these parks. We've went really. Whales who were obviously capable of herding trainers, if not trained properly. You know that stuff. I mean, it's there, and it's in your face, and it's like it's undeniable. That's my main point. Like I'm saying, I think what you see is a lot what you get in this movie.
Okay. But like I said, I just think like for me, I have two big faults with this movie. Like I said, I've gone over it a number of times. My main one is the fact that I feel like my big fault with this movie isn't so much what they present, it's what they don't present in conjunction with.
But again, not relevant to their story, though.
Yeah, well, I digress.
It's set around the death of Don.
I think it is relevant because I think it shows that SeaWorld actually is taking steps, but it's just not the story that they want to tell. But another problem that I do have with this is I feel like just as a documentary, it's Michael Moore levels of exploitive where Michael Moore, it's like Bowling for Columbine is the one movie that I can actually stomach from Michael Moore. And that's just because it's so goddamn entertaining, and I can't deny that it's entertaining. But other than that, I actually find Michael Moore to be pretty disgusting. And I don't want to get into a whole political debate. I'm not a Republican by any means, but but with Michael Moore, it's just circling around, and this is really kind of my final say on this film. I don't really know what else.
Well, I was going to go through kind of like a last kind of string of just kind of some evidence I found, but
well, this is my final. Well, okay, I mean, go ahead, go with your final evidence, and I'll kind of say my final piece on it.
All right. Well, look, and just to show you, what I just keep finding. Again, I can't really find any ways around this. And again, the filmmakers themselves have found that they've she stands by the film, and they've debunked any of SeaWorld's kind of arguments on the matter. And again, I've kind of presented a few of those arguments in what I've been saying here. Just some of the stuff I've said, like Mark Simpson's, for example. I mean, I guess I really haven't acknowledged him in particular. But, Mark Simmons, he was the SeaWorld representative. He was like an ex-SeaWorld guy, but he was passionate about the company. He basically was the only form of defense for SeaWorld. He did the best he could. And again, I would argue again that I'm sure the filmmaker would argue. So that's what I mean. I'm not really arguing it personally, but I kind of agree with it. But, I mean, his points were represented. They were just kind of ill-timed to support the film. That's the thing. They were surrounded by other things because he's alone. It's a lone man on a battlefield. That's why it didn't work out in spirit. That's why he's mad about it. Like, that makes me look bad. Looks like it makes me look. I don't know what I'm talking about. Well, I mean, you know what you're talking about. But there's only one guy versus everyone else on the other side there. And again, that's SeaWorld's fault for not having any other representatives or any other thing to present there. I think they tried to keep it open, but they had nothing to work with on SeaWorld's part there. Right. I mean, they could mention some of the good things they're doing, but in mentioning that, it takes them off point of the film, waste time, and then you get something like. I mean, there are other documentaries, there's a string of documentaries that do that sort of thing. You know what I mean? Where they present both sides, and it just feels kind of muddy. Of like, oh, well, you don't know which side they're going for. And again, I think it's just what's presented here is for the audience to decide. But before we get into final thoughts, let me just quickly go through this. So again, I mean, just look at. It's connecting a string of events that SeaWorld just keep made a series of bad decisions that have still just come to roost in the death of two, technically three people. and a few whales in the mix too. Like we had a whale that was headbutted and severed an artery, and it was really gross and disgusting. I was like, oh, poor whale. I mean, it's real sad. Like they didn't inform the trainers of Tilikum's past in the beginning there, which is really not good. I mean, you thought, okay, dangerous folks. Whale may be a killer, may pull you in. It's something you may want to know. It's like, okay, just don't go by that whale. Tell them why, so they can know not to do certain things that might put them in danger. The big thing, and I think is a huge reason for the biased nature of the film in many places, that if there is any, again, I looked at the editing in some montages as best as I could just to see if there's anything that is manipulated. It doesn't seem that way to me, except for that last bit in that montage. But here's the reason for that, Tiki, is that there's a great moment where I think it's Jeff Entry. He mentions like they caught like Tilikum making a little mishap. Like again, it wasn't like a big, not pulling anyone or anything, but he like didn't do the routine exactly, and SeaWorld initially panicked over that, and they told him that even though he edited the little mistake out of there, they told him get rid of the tape, which suggests that any major accident footage SeaWorld has gotten rid of. You'll notice, even if you go on YouTube, you will not find any video of Dawn Branchfield's death. Cannot be found. It wasn't used in the movie. Even if they couldn't find it, Even if they did, it would have been in bad taste. So they would have left that out, which is why they kind of hinted at it best they could, like different footage. Like, of Tilikum kind of going around the pool right before they had everything leading up to it. They don't have the actual death itself,
Right.
So the point is, like, even if they had that footage, SeaWorld wouldn't allow it, because, again, they've covered it up so nicely there. And I don't want to just sound like buying into a conspiracy. I'm just saying I'm looking at the evidence that's presented here, folks. I don't want to sound like I'm not super kind of like down with SeaWorld. And again, that was the big fear of this movie, which has come true for a lot of things. And I will agree with kind of a lot of kind of modern day SeaWorld trainers. I don't want to say modern day, current SeaWorld trainers or former current SeaWorld trainers, where they mentioned that the big fear is that the big thing that has happened is that with this movie, after it comes out, you have your average Joe like myself, kind of, not specifically myself, your average Joe like knows there's very little connection to SeaWorld. They like an idiot on the street will come in there, he'll see the movie, says, I like whales now, SeaWorld's bad. Again, that's not
exactly right.
Like everyone's a conservationist. Everyone's like involved in the whale thing. I saw a movie, whales are treated bad. Like, oh, SeaWorld's the Antichrist. Down with SeaWorld. Again, it's not
glad
that
you
way.
don't have that attitude, Dragon.
I don't. I'm just
don't have that attitude.
Yeah, you know what I mean. I'm just like, I was just taking it as like, okay, well, SeaWorld's a little more gray than we thought it was. That's what I'm coming on this film with. Okay, there's a lot. I didn't know any of this stuff, and a lot of it is indisputable. And the blaming her for the ponytail. You notice this reoccurring pattern. It's not just started with Dawn. It's like going way back to like Kelly Byrne, Kelty Byrne, the first victim of Tilikum. Like they all. They've always circled it back to the trainer. Never have they blamed the whale. They always call it trainer error. It always seems to be trainer error. You think, okay, simple solution to having a whale that is killed. I would imagine SeaWorld has a very successful, really smart company. Here's what they do. Again, either they do that whole release, the rescue, rehabilitate, release thing. I know not specifically for a whale, for an orca, I get that. But I'm just saying, you think, in a similar vein to that, they would ditch the whale. They ditch the whale after it kills someone, wouldn't you think?
Well, the reason why they can't just ditch the whale is like, what the fuck are they going to do? Just release it back into the wild?
Well, I'm saying not release it back in the wild. You put it somewhere where it's not going to be in shows around other orcas that are in a public park. I'm saying you put them, you ditch them in some way. I'm not saying like kill them or anything. I'm saying you put them.
I know, right? I could have phrased that a little better.
I'm saying you get. I would figure the minute your asset kills someone, you can't use that again. It's dooming yourself for failure. It's a bad publicity. It's a bad business move. Again, this could happen again. Be really bad business. The whale that kills trainers. Witnesses see this. Whale is trouble. We gotta, you put it somewhere where it's going to be safe. If not in the wild, which again, it's whether you could somehow train a whale to go back in the wild and be able to rehabilitate something. It's up in the air. It's kind of fiction. We don't know what we're even capable of at this point.
You know what? I have to say to that. The T-Rex from Jurassic Park was a beloved fixture in Jurassic World, and in the end, she saved the goddamn day. Does it matter how many people she ate in the end, BlueDragonFive? Does it really matter? No, I'm not being serious. But I'm sorry.
I mean, there was a great
that situation.
Yeah, there was a great effective part where Dave Duffus, the kind of the marine expert guy, kind of the curly hair. he he says he's presented with he has the 2 Tilikum victims in his hand and files, and he says, what have we learned? Nothing. We haven't learned a darn thing. So, again, it's just showing you again there is from the 80s, from the 80s of her death to 2010 with Dawn's death. Again, show you there is a correlation there. It's not just like things have improved. They're not exactly like they were back in the day. But no, I mean, you're right. That was in the 70s where they tried to stop hunting whales there. And then the 80s, a lot of bad stuff happened. In 2010, still bad stuff's happening. Thankfully, after that moment, Dawn mentioned, it seems things have adjusted themselves for the best. I mean, whether it would have happened.
That was definitely a catalyst, because Dawn was not just, it wasn't just a tragedy. She was like a beloved, like she was almost kind of like an iconic SeaWorld cast member in a way.
You know how insulting that is to say that, not you, I'm just talking about what said in the movie. It's so insulting to say that, she was, this experienced trainer. She was pulled in by her ponytail.
Exactly.
And she made again, that shows you it's not clean cut. There is definitely we got to look at SeaWorld a little more critical eye if you ever go back there. I'm not saying like go back with like a cynical viewpoint, like, oh, SeaWorld, I know. Again, I think it's the worst.
Just go around with like a Rorschach, like the end is nigh sign.
I'm saying you see a trainer stumble or fall in the pool for a bit, you got to really worry for him for a moment there, because the idea that someone they get blamed, all of it goes on that poor trainer, because they need the job, they want the job, or they really like being there with the whales, and whatever happens is always on them. It's not on they can't have it reflect the SeaWorld, can't let it reflect the whale itself, because they lose like a couple $1,000 asset.
Mm-hmm.
Not a couple, you know what I mean, like tens.
Oh, it's probably way more than that, but
I'm saying I think they said 10 or 20,000. I can't remember what the exact figure was. So I don't know. It's a used whale and they're damaged. I don't know how that goes.
Right.
But you see what I mean, though. It's such a horrible thing, though. They kind of pulling that off and just like them covering themselves by saying, "Oh, it was a dopey trainer, didn't follow procedure," and not in those exact words. "Oh, it was a trainer. Trainer error. They're trained, they're experienced by us." I mean, that still makes us look bad, right? It's a continuing pattern. I think, again, you can't argue the results of this movie. Again, it put a lot of scrutiny on SeaWorld. So again, whether it was going to happen naturally in time, which again, you can't just say that big business wouldn't be distracted by, not just big, any big company would be distracted over time, saying, we'll do this as our main goal. We could probably milk it for a few years so we get more funding and also do some other stuff on the side, use that money for other things, perhaps. I mean, eventually they'll get to that point, but they might stress it out a lot more to have this movie not come out. I mean, again, the same results happen. I mean, the director got what she wanted, but also, SeaWorld again got what they wanted, but their project was publicly kind of shamed into that.
Sure.
I mean, in the end, it's the same result on both sides. Just made SeaWorld, again, I think SeaWorld kind of just what's presented in this film, bear in mind, it seems like SeaWorld kind of got justice. So that for the bad stuff that happened to them, they did kind of they still got what they wanted, but they were also raked over the coals a little bit.
Okay. Do you have any final thoughts?
I do, but you want to. Oh, one more thing before I get into my final thoughts. I have very few final thoughts. I think. Okay. I want to mention that again, just to highlight kind of our directors being as fair as they could be without it is biased and you can't get around that. But to their credit, I mean, they're willing to debunk and disprove any accusations on any day because they stand by it. But other than that, though, they left out a lot of really dark stuff too. I mean, they could have gone with a few other animals again, but the main thing is that they cut out 2 bits. It's on the DVD, like 2 deleted segments from the movie. There was a bit about mosquitoes and how whales are kind of subject to being kind of killed by mosquitoes, essentially, because they don't really have a lot of room to escape. I guess. I mean, the point is, like, a lot of mosquito death, and they got rid of the most.
I imagine it's less to do with more room to escape and more to do with viruses contracted.
Yeah, that's the main thing. Give mosquitoes kind of allowing.
Right.
The point is, I don't know what these specifics were. No mosquitoes were. It was the lead segment of the movie. It was really depressing. So it was like, okay, it's a little too much, guys. We already have kind of like a Spanish woman and her mother and her future mother-in-law kind of crying over a dead body. I don't think we can get any darker than that. But also, there's a really darker thing, even more dark than mosquitoes. Was the death swim? Do you know what the death swim is?
No, I don't.
Oh god, it was to put a whale out of its misery. I guess following the mosquito stinger. Basically, when a whale is it's really injured, they inject it with something, and basically the whale will swim around until it violently dies. And when I say violently dies, it basically blood is coming out of the mouth and the eyes go red.
Oh my God! Oh Jesus Christ! Oh wow!
They didn't show that. They just talked about it.
Man, okay.
They didn't show that, but I'm saying that was something that there was a story about, like a trainer seeing that and like how traumatic that is. It is.
Well, I gotta say, Dragon, that was a good trump card to save for the end there.
I'm just saying, when you when you do that, it's. I'm saying they could have gone a lot darker with some of the stuff you don't see at SeaWorld.
All right.
Okay,
so let's.
You want me to
let's wrap this up. I'll go first, and then so my final thoughts. Dragon, you know what? I do think at the end of the day, you probably do win this debate. It doesn't change what I feel about the movie. I feel like the movie, there are certainly good parts about this, and I've acknowledged all the parts that I like about this movie. I think at the end of the day, I have the same problem with this movie as I do with a Michael Moore movie, in that it uses editing, it uses music, it uses kind of like selective history and, highlighting some things, not highlighting other things to paint, what is a biased point of view. But having said that, Dragon, like you said, I do think you have a lot of good points. SeaWorld is definitely not, I'm not trying to call them, a beacon of all that is good in the world or anything like that. I'm just saying SeaWorld has done a lot of good for ocean and marine life conservation. It's not something that they give SeaWorld any credit for. And like you said, I think just kind of my final statement right here is, the broad spectrum of the movie, it's kind of and I feel like this is where most of our debate kind of stemmed from, orcas are the primary focus of this movie, but outside of orcas, I feel like there is a lot of positive stuff to be had from SeaWorld, and even with the orcas, like I said, and this is the last thing I have to say, just the exposure to the orcas from children, it gives children a motivation, it sparks the imagination. I'm not saying all the things with the orcas are great. I'm saying right now they're making the best of a bad situation that they got into in the first place with the orcas. But overall, it's a good movie. It's a good documentary in terms of it gives you the feels and it elicits the emotion that it's trying to elicit from you. It's just, for my personal taste, as someone who also doesn't like stuff like a general Michael Moore documentary, it's just a little bit too manipulative for my personal tastes, and I do think that I do kind of have a personal stake, not in SeaWorld, but just kind of in, marine conservation just in general. And I do think, in general, I think this movie did SeaWorld did a little bit more harm than good, and I know that's not the director's intention, but I feel like by turning people into the armchair activist, Dragon, the people you just made fun of oh, I just watched this movie and now I'm really angry and blah.
You're absolutely right.
To admit that is a reality of how people reacted to this movie, and I think it's not how the director wanted people to react to this movie, but that is what happened, and it's hard for me to look past this movie for that reason. So okay, so go ahead with your final thoughts.
I mean, she said that she didn't want to make it controversial and just find out how a trainer got killed and what led to that. That was, again, as I mentioned earlier on, that was the main point. The main thing else after that is the stuff she has to deal with. I'll give you that. And you make a film like that, I think it just turned into a bigger beast than expected in that case. But yeah, I think you're right. People, the main criticism of the movie is that it's emotionally manipulative, and that is true. But I don't think it necessarily is a bad thing, because again, I think that still contributes to an effective movie. That I think is well made. Again, I think it really
emotional manipulation is more acceptable when it's a fucking fictitious feature film and not a documentary, though. That's my whole thing.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I tell you, I mean, a lot. I don't want to give it a percentage, because I think I'm gonna be wrong with every percentage if I really think about it. Because initially I want to say 80, and I'm kind of going 75, and I'm a solid 70. I don't know. I keep going back and forth on the percentages. But regardless, I mean, my findings, I can't find a lot where they really, again, sticking to what their story is. I mean, there is manipulation here and there, but a lot of it is on the money. It just seems like stuff that just isn't reported. And that's what they're zeroing in on in the movies. I mean, a lot of it seems it is manipulative and it is supporting the narrative. And I think it's a really well told narrative. And I think the emotions, the score, and everything, it just complements each other so well, and kind of getting you to kind of understand kind of what drove a whale to these certain behaviors. But again, it's not just it's not an a villain piece. Like, it's not a Jaws piece. It's like the opposite of a Jaws piece. You know, it's like you understand. It's like the Jaws prequel. You know, you understand what drove him to that essentially. Thinking not Jaws at all, but you know what I mean. It's I think it's a great character. Sorry. I think it's a great journey to kind of understand something, and I think it's yeah, not psychological thrill, but it is a thriller. It is investing in places. Again, that emotional manipulation, it contributes to a good movie, but and I think it gets more factually right than you'd think if you really kind of scrutinize it and say, okay, well, look, a lot of this it is obviously biased, but again, it's a lot of it's right though. Again, it's such an interesting experience, kind of reevaluating. And that's my main thing. I've been kind of on a loop with. I know, but it's how I feel. And you get moments like the Jeff Ventry moment where it's such an impactful moment way at the beginning there, where he's looking at the footage of Dawn. This is like an improvised moment that was captured on film. And you get moments like this where Dawn Brancheau is talking to him directly, saying, "Oh, you know, Jeff, he's going to be." He's going to be my supervising trainer one of these days. You know, oh, he's going to be, it's going to be all good stuff. Imagine how impactful as a woman you know is dead is talking to you from beyond the grave, and a little archival piece of footage there. That's, that to me, it's meaningful. And but again, I think you get moments like that, really good emotional bits like that. Again, it's well supported, but you also get these once we just realize it's a little more solid than you think it is when kind of logic hits you in these places like, you know, well, SeaWorld does have a lot of secrets, and it kind of makes sense that these patterns would repeat themselves over time, and they haven't really been corrected until it's been exposed like this. But I think my last thing to say here, again, I know I've been going on for a long time, this is actually my last statement here, is that, look, I think whether or not the big argument that I don't think really been hidden upon by, as I'll just say the last thing is, like, I think, again, whether or not it's on the level, on the money with its facts, like a Michael Moore documentary, I do think just needs to be a good film. I think it's a good film regardless. I think it's entertaining. I do think it kind of emotionally gets you there, which is the purpose of a film. That it even if it's not all there, even if it is a little fictitious in places, which I will say again, I think there's evidence showing that it's not fictitious. That you can't ignore all these facts. I just do think it's a good film regardless, whether it's all on the money or it's 100%. Like, it's absolutely true. Again, you don't have the other side of it, so it cannot be absolutely true. You don't hear the other side. It's not the full story, but it's a good film regardless, and that's really what I mainly care about. And I watch this film many times, which I have, and I just kind of enjoy it on that level. And just going into it, I'm kind of glad to see that it's more, it gets more right than I thought. Yeah. And really, there's not much to say after that. It's just it's fun to film again. I can just watch these moments again. It really circles back to just watching that one moment with Tilcom. Just such an interesting thing, and how it comes back, and how it's just conveyed in this narrative of the worst thing I've ever done is humpback whale, and his name was Tilcom, and that Jeff Beal score playing again. Just the fact that it's an emotional moment isn't emotionally manipulative, but it's so darn good. And you have other emotional moments that do kind of come to the surface here. It's like it's great connecting narrative through emotion, but it's also supported by just kind of, it makes you raise an eye, or makes you question things. And that's what a good film should do, is kind of make you look at something away, but doesn't make it fully corrupt the thing. But we do have the unfortunate state we are in now, where it's the unfortunate state now where there is some harm, there is an aftermath of this film. So we'll never kind of get the same looks as it's gotten again. Like, you might look at it now, like there was some days where it got spiked attendance, or people are coming there to see, oh my God, is it true? Are they actually torturing these was? Because we're a sick bunch of humanity. We all look at things like we're looking for the negative. Other ways we look at it and just like, oh, okay, well, it's not going to get any attendance because people are just horrified. They're making a statement by not going to SeaWorld. So again, there is an aftermath of this film that cannot be avoided, but it's a film that got a response. That's what the mark of any good film is. It elicits an emotional response. So the fact it's an emotional movie, that's good. That works fine. Yep. Seems my colleague has disappeared for a moment. We will see if he returns. I think I've stalled as long as I can, kind of going full circle with my conversation. So forgive me for that, folks. But it's how I feel, though. Again, emotional film, manipulative in places, most certainly, but again, good film. Regardless, good film. And again, the fact that sparks debate like this, that's also really That's a good mark of a film too. That it sparks conversation. It is polarizing. You have I would initially kind of equate my associate here Tiki to really be kind of like a SeaWorld defender, because he's been in Marine Park. He's had very positive experiences. So he has kind of a bit of like he can't look past it in that regard. Me, I mean, I have no connection to whatsoever, because I'm buying into this a little more. So again, we both have our own kind of biases at work here. But again, I think we both kind of in our conversation we kind of reached the middle ground of just kind of opening our perspectives. So, what if there is kind of a gray here? And this movie's about the gray, and we do get the black and white whale. We do reach a gray in the middle there. So it's, they reach a gray, and there's a lot of blue around it too. The whole world kind of viewing that kind of in a passive area where you have black and white of like, it's not just good and not just evil. It's the gray in between that we really have to focus on. That's not seen. Yeah. Yep. Blackfish. One moment, folks. I might just have to end this myself here, unless we are somehow separated in the time my associate has not returned. Sorry to shatter the illusion, folks, but it happens sometimes. And the whole film is about shattering illusions. So I mean, it's on some level, it's kind of peering behind the curtain, as Kevin Smith puts it, seeing how the sausage is made. But yeah. It's a good experience. I would recommend this film to people. We talked about it, pretty much spoiled all the plot points, but seriously, check it out on Netflix when you get a chance. Form your own opinions. That's what it's really about. But also, while you're at it, check out the Movie Machine podcast. I mean, that's a podcast. Also stores a lot of intelligent thought, but also a lot of laughs are shared. A lot of tears are shed at times. Not a lot of tears, but I mean tears of great happiness, great laughter. But it looks like I'm gonna have to end this one, folks. So.